And opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
We're always trying to warn tenants, don't ignore a notice.
Tonight on Politics Now, an eviction moratorium is extended, the competing legal decisions in Nevada, and efforts to hand out millions of dollars in rental assistance.
I think the very positive news is that we're seeing a lot of people who are going back to work and leaving unemployment.
What happens when unemployment runs out? We talked to the head of Dieter about what to expect when federal programs end in a month.
I don't want a mandate. I'm tired of just giving people mandates.
And a plea from Governor Sisolak, what he is asking businesses to do so more vaccine mandates won't be necessary.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now.
The CDC has extended its eviction moratorium until October 3rd, unless the courts step in. Thanks for joining us. I'm Vanessa Murphy. John is off. President Joe Biden acknowledged that the Supreme Court previously indicated Congress, not CDC, would have to extend a moratorium.
The existing moratorium was not constitutional. It wouldn't stand.
Despite that acknowledgement, the Democrats in Nevada's congressional delegation all applauded the move. Biden said he hoped it would buy time to hand out rental assistance money while it worked its way through the courts. The moratorium applies to areas with high rates of spread of COVID-19, and Clark County definitely falls into that category. Landlords can still move ahead with evictions, but the CDC moratorium may prevent that final step of kicking tenants out of their homes. Barbara Buckley, who heads the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada, points out a decision was recently made in the Las Vegas Justice Court stating the moratorium doesn't apply to Nevada residents. She says she disagrees with the decision and she believes it will be overturned, but it's an example of why tenants need to take action to protect themselves.
We're a little worried that people hear the word moratorium and they think they don't have to do anything. The CDC moratorium stops the service of a final eviction order for 60 days. But it's not a final solution for the rental problem.
A spokeswoman for Governor Steve Sisolak says the state is expecting more guidance from the CDC in the coming days. Buckley offers 5 steps for tenants if they receive an eviction notice. We have those on our website, 8newsnow.com. Right now, about 9,000 people in Clark County are waiting to find out if their applications for rental help will be approved. One local business owner told me it's not just tenants who are struggling right now, though. He says landlords and property managers are left to pick up the pieces, literally. While some tenants are facing an eviction crisis, the owner of a property management company says some landlords are facing a crisis of their own, finding some properties left like this after tenants are kicked out. You can see a window broken, belongings left behind. The place is just trashed.
What other business is vilified for trying to stay in business? But yet property managers are, owners are.
Derek Mollinger owns Vice Realty, which he says manages about 650 units throughout the Las Vegas Valley. He tells the I-Team this is a frequent problem.
Closet doors ripped off.
Properties destroyed after tenants are locked out.
We don't just file a piece of paper and kick someone out because we don't like them.
If the eviction moratorium ends, Mollinger estimates he'll soon be locking out tenants in 20 units for unpaid rent, something he says could have been prevented if they applied for rental assistance.
They don't want it because they see us as us against them. And it's really not that way. We have a symbiotic relationship. I need tenants, tenants need me.
While evictions are expected to increase, rent in southern Nevada is also going up.
Sure, I was calling to tell him that I was going to pay it on Friday.
The I-Team first contacted Mollinger after we met his tenant, Tommy Wesley, Monday. He told the I-Team his rent was raised by $275, which Mollinger confirms.
That's a really big jump. How can you justify that?
Same way the gas station justifies going from $2.43 in January to $4.11 today. Same way Home Depot charges $70 for a sheet of plywood now, and it used to be in the teens. Same way when I go to the grocery store, prices went up.
He says in many cases he's willing to work with tenants like Wesley by giving them another month at the old rate. But he also has obligations to the landlords he represents.
They're trying to make a living. Some of them count on this for their retirement. Some of them, yes, they have a bunch of units, and this is a business for them. The majority of people, it's not that.
Mollinger says at the end of the day, he just wants the rent money, whether it's from the rental assistance or directly from tenants. Mollinger says he is frustrated with how slow the process is going with the applications. The county is approving about 800 applications a week. We've put a list of resources at 8newsnow.com. It includes a link for rental assistance, what tenants should do if they receive an eviction notice again, and information on a program for landlords. Governor Steve Sisolak says he is not planning another shutdown or capacity limits, but he's exploring other steps like making the vaccine mandatory in specific situations. That can include at colleges and universities and for healthcare workers. Sisolak also says he's asked his medical advisors how to make large gatherings safer. At this point, he says he is not inclined to push businesses and organizers to require vaccine passports like New York City's doing.
I don't want a mandate. I'm tired of just giving people mandates. I want the cooperation coming back. And they're taking the first step and saying, Governor, we're with you, because I believe they are with us. We're all together on this. To say that, look, this is how we can do it better. If we do A, B, C, it'll be better. That's what I'm hopeful will come forward from the industry.
The Nevada Hospital Association reports overcrowding and staffing shortages, and that nearly all patients hospitalized with COVID-19 are not vaccinated. Two major federal programs people are getting unemployment from right now are ending in a month. There are about 39,000 on PUA and 69,000 on the Federal Extended Benefits, PEUC. So what happens when they run out? I talked with the director of the state's Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation.
The PUA and the PEUC end September 6th, right? So what do you expect to happen after that as far as those people who have been receiving that money?
These are congressional programs that are extensions or new programs that Congress created in response to the pandemic, and they do expire, as you say, the first part of September. And what will happen is they end, and unless Congress takes action, which we currently don't have any expectation that they will do anything, these programs are ending and folks will file and get their last week of benefits. This is actually what happened in the Great Recession as well. Benefits were extended for ultimately 99 weeks, and then they ended.
Is there any alternative type of program, unemployment program, they could try to apply for, or that's it?
The PUA program is for gig workers, and that was a new thing that Congress created to help people that pretty much didn't qualify for regular UI. So if the only folks who are going to be available for another program like regular UI are folks who worked a regular job with regular wages in the last year. And by and large, most of the folks we're seeing did not do that, so they would not qualify.
Obviously, COVID-19 and the pandemic is a fluid situation, but are there any projections about when Nevada could return to those pre-pandemic unemployment numbers?
Northern Nevada and rural Nevada have recovered a large number of the jobs that they lost at the beginning of the pandemic, and it's Las Vegas that is really the outlier where we're still looking for those jobs to come back. So it kind of varies, and because a lot of the jobs are in hospitality and entertainment in Las Vegas, I think it really does depend on the COVID situation in terms of the recovery. I think the very positive news is that we're seeing a lot of people who are going back to work and leaving unemployment. are going into new jobs, and they're actually making a little more money than they made on their last job.
Shifting gears to fraud, we know that's been a big issue. Are there any estimates at this point of how much fraud there has been?
I have shared several times that kind of at a super high level. We, at the beginning of the pandemic, unemployment was about 30%, which means we would expect to see about 500,000 unemployment applications. And that's about how many people got some unemployment benefits. But we actually saw over 2 million unemployment applications. And most of those we didn't pay. And unfortunately, a few legit people got caught up in that.
Cafferata also said they plan to use American Rescue Act money to pay off the unemployment trust fund debt and put it back at zero. A proposal to pay people in Clark County to get the COVID vaccine is on pause for now. Commissioner Tick Sagerbloom proposed paying people $100 to get vaccinated. Commissioners also briefly talked about the possibility of mandating county employees to get the vaccine or show proof of a negative test. They'll talk about both of those in a few weeks. Nevada Congressman Mark Amodei revealed he has been recovering from cancer. Amodei said he has had surgery and treatments and is recovering well. He told the Associated Press he did not reveal this in September when he learned the diagnosis because he didn't want it to affect the November election. And Mayor Carolyn Goodman shared she tested positive for COVID-19 last month. She is fully vaccinated.
I have no idea because I'm out there all the time, probably inappropriately hugging and touching people all the time. And that's how I choose to operate, and that's how I will continue to choose to operate. I get to choose how I am.
Mayor Goodman says her symptoms were mild and she was able to recover and get back to work after 10 days. Making the grade. Next on Politics Now, teachers and students will have to adjust to new grading policies at CCSD, why they have been put in place, and the reaction from inside the classroom. Plus, the polls that show a precarious position for California's governor as a recall election approaches. Clark County School District students head back to class Monday. While many families are hoping to get back to some normalcy with in-person classes, there will be some changes. Kate Houston breaks down the new grading policy and why some teachers say it's lowering standards.
This grade change takes behaviors completely out of the question, and it arguably at the detriment of the student.
Tam Lester, a teacher at Del Sol Academy, is preparing to use the new grading guidelines.
There's a lot of mixed thoughts.
The new district-wide scale sets the lowest grade at 50%. Behaviors such as attendance, participation, and late or missing assignments will not influence a grade. During a back-to-school kickoff, Superintendent Dr. Jesus Jara says this will create equity across the district by having grades reflect knowledge instead of non-academic factors.
Whether you are in Moapa or in Laughlin, Nevada, or the core of Las Vegas, all children will have the ability to demonstrate.
However, Lester says this new policy takes tools that incentivize students away from teachers and does not instill accountability.
What they will need is those learner-ready behaviors, things like focus, things like participation, things like time management. And some of these policies are taking those away.
The new guidelines were approved in early July. CCSD is currently training teachers on how to use the new grading scale ahead of the school year.
And it's not going to happen overnight, and I think it's going to be something that students, parents, and staff will acclimate to.
Lester worries it may be too big of a shift too soon.
And I know the district wants to focus on intrinsic motivation, and that's beautiful, but I think we also need training with that. You know, for the past history of education is focused on classroom management, not classroom motivation.
Kate Houston, 8 News Now.
California's governor is on the hot seat. The new polls from California that show a recall could be successful and who the leading candidate is to replace him. starting to look worse for California's Governor Gavin Newsom. Our sister program in the Golden State, Inside California Politics, released new polling about the recall election Newsom is facing. Ashley Zavala breaks it down for us.
This latest poll shows just within the last couple of weeks, more and more California voters are indicating they'll support recalling Governor Gavin Newsom. This latest Inside California Politics and Emerson College poll went out into the field over the weekend to 1,000 California voters. In this poll, 46% said they would vote to recall Governor Gavin Newsom versus 48% who say they would keep him in office. The amount of voters supporting the recall has increased 3% since our last poll just 2 weeks ago.
Well, obviously, the momentum based on these numbers are going in the wrong direction for the governor. But there's so much happening on the ground that it's not that surprising, considering everything happening with COVID, the opening of schools. There's a lot of anxiety amongst voters, and generally they take it out on the politicians.
While voters are still split on whether to recall the governor, most, about 40%, are still undecided on the pick to replace him. Among the candidates, the frontrunner here remains Republican radio talk show host Larry Elder, now with 23% of voters saying they would pick him, up 7 points from just 2 weeks ago.
And that's where we see that huge number of Democrats truly undecided of what to do. Nearly 70% don't know who to vote for. Because there's really not an alternative for them to choose.
Our pollsters found Governor Newsom is losing support from Hispanic voters. 54% of Latino respondents to this poll said that they would vote to recall the governor. This is the only racial group with the majority indicating that they would do so.
He's going to have to make a large impact with that group of voters. Now, with that said, he's really struggling with less educated voters. And I think that's where the COVID pandemic really separates the society. So if you don't have a college degree, you seem to be more upset and you seem to want to recall the governor. With a college degree, less the case, you want to keep the governor.
To give you a breakdown of the party affiliation of those who responded to this poll, 46% identified as Democrat, about 23% identified as Republican, and about 30% said no party preference.
Lake levels continue to drop at Lake Mead amid a historic mega drought in the West. Nevada Senator Catherine Cortez Masto says she has a plan to help by recycling sewage water on a large scale. Our Washington, D.C. correspondent Alexandra Lamone explains.
Much of California's wastewater is treated and dumped into the Pacific. But as western states continue to suffer through a mega drought, water managers and lawmakers say wastewater must be recycled.
Recycled water is going to be extremely important, not just in the West, but likely throughout the entire nation.
Bronson Mack with the Southern Nevada Water Authority says Southern Nevada already recycles all indoor wastewater, not just from sinks and tubs, but from toilets too.
They use a process of biological and chemical processes, multi-staged filtration, and then a disinfection process.
Portions of western states already recycle their wastewater, but because of the drought, climate change, and population growth, experts say larger scale water recycling is a must.
We have to figure out how we manage not the water just for the current population, but like our Southern Nevada Water Authority does, projects 50 years in the future.
Nevada Senator Catherine Cortez Masto introduced a bill to help pay for large-scale water recycling projects to turn sewage water into drinking water.
For example, there's an opportunity for Nevada to partner with California for California to actually recycle its sewage water.
Senator Cortez Masto's bill is co-sponsored by California Senator Alex Padilla and is so far included in the Senate's bipartisan infrastructure bill. It would provide $450 million in grants to 17 western states for large-scale water recycling projects. In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
Joining us to talk about this bill is Alexandra Limon from our Washington, D.C. Bureau. Alex, you mentioned the Nevada-California partnership to recycle water in the Los Angeles area. That may be good news for California, but what does Nevada get out of that?
Yeah, that's right. This is a really great partnership that's going to help try to start recycling water in the Los Angeles area. So that is a huge project. But Southern Nevada, in return for its investment in this project, is getting something out of it. They will get a share of that water that is being recycled or that will be recycled in the future in the LA area. But instead of, having to pipe it and pump it back from California to Nevada, what's going to happen is that Nevada will get an allotment, that same allotment of that water that they will instead now be able to take from Lake Mead, from the Colorado River through Lake Mead in return for that investment.
And you said the water recycling bill is included in the infrastructure package. Tell us about the other major water investments included in that package.
Well, in addition to just the lack of water that we're seeing in the West because of this ongoing mega drought conditions, another big issue that the entire country is facing is access to clean and safe drinking water. In a lot of places, the water infrastructure, the water pipes are just so old. They're decades old, sometimes 100 years old, and they are lead leaching pipes, so they contaminate the water. In other areas, there's issues with chemical contamination of water and things like PFAS being in the water. So the infrastructure bill actually also includes tens of billions of dollars to be able to be dispersed throughout the country to help try to deal with some of those water contamination issues, to also make sure that the water that is available is actually safe for people to drink.
In What to Watch, here's what we're keeping an eye on next week. First up, Lake Mead levels. A federal shortage is expected to be declared along the Colorado River in the next few weeks. That could initiate cuts in both Arizona and Nevada. We're waiting to see what else happens with it. Plus, Monday is back to school. We're watching to see how mask mandates in all classes are going and if more steps will be necessary this school year. Thanks so much for watching Politics Now. You can stay up to date online and watch us every Saturday.